There is a silent law that governs every successful life, and yet it is so often overlooked by the masses who strive, who toil, who exhaust themselves in the pursuit of prosperity. It is not the loudest man who commands the room. It is not the most educated man who secures the deal. It is not the man with the widest smile or the largest following who ascends to the summit of personal greatness. No, it is the man who controls his inner dialogue, who has tamed the voice within before he ever dares to speak to the world without. If you change the way you communicate, you change your life not merely because words influence others, but because your communication reflects the state of your mind. And mind, my friend, is the master of your fate. I tell you plainly, as one who has studied the laws of success across the globe, across generations, and across the hidden chambers of human nature, mastery over the spoken word begins with mastery over the unspoken thought. He who cannot detach from his emotions cannot govern his mind, and he who cannot govern his mind will forever be a slave to circumstance. You may have wondered why some men rise, seemingly untouched by criticism, unshaken by failure, unbothered by chaos, while others, equally intelligent, collapse under pressure, break at the first rejection, and spiral in the face of petty offenses. The answer is this: one responds, the other reacts. One has chosen detachment, the other has chosen emotional slavery. I will not flatter you with modern cliches. I will not entertain you with shallow promises. Instead, I will confront you with the truth that only a few are ready to face. Your mindif left undisciplined will betray you. It will hand over your potential to your emotions, your destiny to your fears, your power to the momentary whims of impulse. But if you master your internal world, if you cultivate calm, if you train clarity, if you choose thought before reaction, then you will rise above your old life as a man rises from a grave, awakened and free. Let us speak now, not to the crowd, not to the masses, but to the inner elite, that part of you which is ready to lead, to think, to rule with reason. You are not here for entertainment. You are here to be armed. So I begin with the first truth. He who speaks without self-mastery weakens himself with every word. You must understand, all communication is a reflection of state. And your state, whether empowered or chaotic, is determined not by what others say or do, but by what you permit yourself to feel, dwell upon, and express. The man who allows offense to dictate his tone, who lets fear shape his words, or lets ego inflate his speech, is not a master. He is a puppet. You must become immune, and not insensitive, but immune. There is a difference. Emotional detachment does not mean you feel nothing. It means you no longer allow fleeting emotions to dictate your truth. Do not confuse noise for power. The lion speaks rarely, but when it does, the jungle stills. Why? Because authority is not in volume. It is in clarity, conviction, and control. If you would command your world, you must first command your voice. And if you would command your voice, you must first command your thoughts. And if you would command your thoughts, you must first detach from your emotions. This is the chain of dominion. Break any link, and your communication collapses into weakness. Now let us explore this further. You may ask, but how do I detach from emotion when emotion feels so strong, so immediate, so real? And I reply, emotion is not the problem. Identification with emotion is the problem. Here is what most men never learn. You are not your emotions, you are not your thoughts, you are not your fears or doubts or desires. You are the observer, the chooser, the architect behind them. But only if you choose to be. Let me give you a law, one that has shaped empires and shattered illusions. Whatever you react towns you, but whatever you pause to consider you master. Every time you react without reflection, you give away power. Every time you speak without direction, you waste influence. Every time you let ego interrupt understanding, you sever connection. And communication is connection, it is influence, it is leadership. If you wish to lead yourself, your business, your destiny, you must detach, discipline, and direct. Now I will teach you a principle I call the law of mental neutrality. Mental neutrality is not apathy. It is not indifference. It is not weakness masquerading as calm. It is the power of the individual who has risen above the battlefield of emotion and now stands at the helm of his own thoughts, watching, waiting, choosing deliberately how and when to act. The mentally neutral man does not flinch at criticism. He does not rush to defend his ego. He does not chase after approval or tremble at rejection. He listens, and in listening, he gathers power. He observes, and in observing, he acquires understanding. He delays reaction, not out of fear, but out of intention. This is the man who rules silently, while others exhaust themselves trying to appear strong. Let me give you this principle in the clearest terms. Emotion demands reaction, wisdom delays it. And in that delay between stimulus and response, you are offered the most powerful space in the universe, choice. Choice is the sacred territory where you shape your destiny, but to access it, you must create space. And to create space, you must be detached. When you communicate from reaction, you speak the language of the passed off wounds, of insecurity, of pride. When you communicate from neutrality, you speak the language of clarity, conviction, and vision. The world rewards the man who speaks with direction, but it punishes the man who speaks with desperation. Let us consider now the effect this principle has in business, in relationships, in leadership. The leader who cannot remain neutral under pressure will always forfeit the room to someone calmer. The entrepreneur who panics in negotiation will always lose to the one who remains grounded, silent, precise. The man who allows his tone to rise with anger will be heard, yes, but he will never be respected. Do not confuse noise for influence. The mind that is at peace will always command more than the voice that is loud. Now, let us descend deeper. Beneath communication lies thought, and beneath thought lies belief. And so I bring you now to the next principle. The principle of thought first. Every word is preceded by a thought, and every thought, if repeated, becomes a belief. And belief, when fixed in the subconscious mind, becomes destiny. This is no philosophy of dreams. This is cause and effect. If you want to speak like a master, you must think like one. You must saturate your inner world with strength, precision, and purpose until it overflows naturally into speech. You cannot outspeak your self-image. You cannot consistently express wisdom if your inner voice is filled with fear. So you must train your thoughts as a soldier trains for battle. You must rise early, not to check your phone, not to react to the world, but to dictate your inner world first. Autosuggestion, when practiced deliberately, is the instrument of self-directed evolution. You tell your mind what to believe, and over time, your mind accepts it. Tell yourself, I speak with clarity because I think with clarity. My mind is still, therefore my words are precise. I do not react. I respond with wisdom, with strength, with certainty. I am the master of my emotions. I command the tone of my voice. I govern the outcome of my communication. These are not merely affirmations. These are declarations of dominion. Speak them aloud. Write them down. Repeat them until they are etched into your subconscious, for that is where your true self lives, and that self must be trained. Now let us take a deeper look at the mechanism of mastery. I bring you to the concept I have taught to titans and rulers alike. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it is command. Detachment has been misunderstood by the weak and misrepresented by the insecure. Let me set the record straight. To detach is not to reject emotion, it is to place emotion under authority. It is to acknowledge the flame without burning your house down. The man who has mastered detachment does not deny his feelings. He witnesses them, he surveys them, and then he acts not from emotion but from purpose. There is a difference between experiencing an emotion and being enslaved by it. The undisciplined man says, I feel, therefore I must act. The master says, I feel, therefore I pause. I think, I direct, and only then I act. Do you see the difference? Your life, as it stands today, is not shaped by what others said to you. It is shaped by how you responded. Your income, your influence, your relationships, your peace, they are all the mirror of how well or how poorly you have governed your reactions. And here I give you one of the most dangerous truths you will ever hear. Most people do not communicate. They project. They speak from wounds, not from wisdom. They argue to protect the ego, not to arrive at truth. They insult to escape their own fear. But the individual who has mastered emotional detachment speaks with no agenda but clarity. He listens with no urgency but understanding. He moves with no fear but the fear of wasting time. I tell you, such a man becomes magnetic. His words carry weight. His presence commands stillness. Why? Because he is not chasing power. He is rooted in it. You must become such a man. Let us go further into the temple of the mind. Let us strip away illusion. Let us confront the next truth, and let this one pierce deep. You were born with power, but you were never taught to wield it. Society teaches you how to express, but never how to control. You were told to speak your truth, but not to verify it. You were told to follow your feelings, but not to discipline them. You were told to just be yourself without understanding what yourself even means. Is it any wonder the world is filled with noise and so little impact? You must go the opposite way. You must unlearn the chaos. You must undo the programming of emotional dependency. You must silence the urge to explain, to defend, to be understood. You do not need to be understood. You need to be unshakable, because only from inner stillness can you communicate with precision. From this place of calm, I teach you the next great success law, the power of calmness. Calmness is not a mood. It is a decision. It is the product of discipline, and it is the precondition of wisdom. A calm man can hear what is not said. He can see the motive behind the words. He can read the energy of a room and decide when to strike, when to speak, and when to wait in silence. You may have thought calmness is passive. No, my friend, calmness is strategic. It is what allows a man to think 3 moves ahead while others scramble to react. When your communication is rooted in calmness, it becomes surgical. You cut through confusion, you dissolve tension. You win respect not because you shout, but because you speak only when necessary and never without purpose. I now bring you to a concept so powerful, so utterly transformative, that if understood and applied, it will elevate your influence, your relationships, your entire life. I call it the principle of inner speech. We often think communication is external, what we say, how we say it, what others hear. But that is only the surface. The most powerful communication you will ever engage in is not with others. It is with yourself. Every morning, you communicate with your destiny in silence. What do you say? Do you speak defeat before the world even sees your face? Do you rehearse arguments, rejections, insults? Do you replay mistakes, wounds, fears? Or do you wake and declare, I am composed, I am deliberate, I am effective, I do not react elite. Change your inner dialogue, and you will never again need to shout. You will walk into rooms and be heard before you speak. You will silence weak men with force, but with presence. You will change lives not by performance, but by alignment. Why? Because you will be communicating from the most powerful frequency available to man, authentic inner mastery. Let us now descend deeper into the furnace where all greatness is forged, your inner world, for it is there, in silence and in solitude, that the true battle for communication begins. And make no mistake, this battle is not fought with others. It is not waged in conference rooms or across dinner tables. It is not about likes or replies or applause. This battle is within between the lower self that craves to be heard and the higher self that chooses to understand. So I present to you now a principle that will either liberate you or expose you. Reaction is the language of the powerless. Response is the language of the prepared. To react is to abandon the throne of your mind. To respond is to rule it. Every time you react to offense, to stress, to rejection, to fear, you are giving your power away, piece by piece, until you become a hollow echo of who you were meant to be. But when you train yourself to respond to, pause, to think, to observe, and to choose, you reclaim the kingdom within. The masses react. But the masters respond, and in doing so, they bend the world in their direction. Let me illustrate with the simplest truth you will ever hear. He who remains calm in chaos becomes the eye of the storm, and the eye commands the storm. When you walk into a room and everyone is panicking, but you are calm, you become the leader. When a conversation turns hostile but you remain still, you become the anchor of influence. When the world screams for your attention but you respond only to purpose, you become unstoppable. Now, you may be wondering, how do I gain this level of control? How do I detach so completely from emotional reactions? And I tell you, you build it like a fortress brick by brick, habit by habit, choice by choice. This is not the work of a weekend, it is the work of a warrior. Which brings us to the next cornerstone in the empire of self mastery. Self discipline is the foundation of all lasting communication. You cannot speak with clarity if your habits are clouded. You cannot lead with power if your impulses lead you. Self discipline is not about denial, it is about dominion. It is the power to say, I will speak only when it serves the mission. It is the strength to hold your silence until your words become sharpened tools, not blunt weapons. It is the maturity to delay gratification, to prioritize effectiveness over expression, to lead your emotion by the leash of logic. Now understand this. Most men never rise above their emotions because they have not yet organized their minds. They live in mental clutter, and they communicate from that same disarray. They interrupt because their thoughts interrupt them. They defend because their ego is always under attack. They shout because their beliefs are built on sand. But the man who builds discipline within speaks with simplicity, not because he is simple, but because he is organized. His words are not scattered, they are strategic. They land with weight. They carry direction. You must become such a man. And to do this, you must embrace the next principle, perhaps the most forgotten law in all of modern society. Silence is a weapon. Use it deliberately. You are taught to fill silence with words, to escape awkwardness, to prove your value with constant speech. But I say to you, do the opposite. Embrace the pause. Harness the quiet. Let your silence speak for you when words would dilute your power. There is no greater show of control than the man who can remain still while others perform, defend, boast, or beg. The man who speaks only when he must is the man whose words are obeyed when he does. That is leadership. That is charisma. That is true. Earned influence not through manipulation, not through trickery, but through alignment with inner stillness. Let me remind you of something you already know, but have perhaps forgotten in the noise of modern life. You do not need to prove your worth in every conversation. You do not need to speak to be seen. You do not need to win every argument. You only need to win yourself, your impulses, your thoughts, your reactions. Once you do, the rest of the world will fall into place. Because external communication always obeys internal hierarchy. And so I ask you now, who leads within you? Is it the voice of your childhood wounds, the voice of your ego, the voice of your fear? Or is it the voice of the architect, the commander, the disciplined master who speaks from vision, not from emotion? Choose your voice. Choose your future. Let us now ascend higher. You have shed much already old habits, false beliefs, emotional chains. Now we forge the most refined tool of the high achiever, precision over performance. In the modern world, many seek to impress, few seek to impact. But understand, the man who seeks to impress will always speak too soon, too much, too loudly. He performs because he is afraid. But the man who seeks to impact will be surgical with every word. He speaks to move minds, not to gain claps. Which are you? You must become obsessed not with attention, but with accuracy. You must train your speech like an archer trains his arrow, not to dazzle, but to strike the center of truth. This is what makes your communication unbreakable, not its length, not its style, not even its logic, but its precision. And precision is a result of detachment, of not needing to be liked, of not fearing silence, of not chasing applause. Let me give you a principle you must etch into your soul. He who speaks to be approved weakens his truth, but he who speaks only truth becomes unignorable. So I ask you, do you speak to be understood, or do you speak because you understand? There is a world of difference between the two. We are nearing the summit. But before we arrive, you must understand the final gatekeeper, the one force that will either multiply your mastery or destroy it. The ego must be disciplined or it will destroy your communication. The ego wants to be right. The ego wants to win the room. The ego wants to be validated at all costs. But the truth? The man whose ego controls his speech will never be respected, only tolerated. He will be loud, but he will not be heard. He will dominate, but he will never lead. He will impress, but he will never inspire. You must discipline the ego. You must learn to speak without seeking. You must train yourself to speak not to appear right, but to create right, to bring clarity, unity, truth, and effectiveness into the conversation. This takes humility. But humility is not weakness. Humility is the anchor of all greatness. Only the humble man can truly influence, because he is not trying to dominate, he is trying to deliver. And people can feel that, they trust it, they follow it. So speak not from ego, but from clarity. Not from wounds, but from wisdom. Not from need, but from purpose. And now, my friend, you are ready for the highest truth in all communication. The truth that, once accepted, will transform every relationship, every business deal, every interaction you will ever have. It is this: every conversation is a mirror. You are not speaking to others, you are speaking to yourself through them. Every conversation reveals your level of self-mastery. If you become defensive, it shows your insecurity. If you become reactive, it shows your lack of control. If you become aggressive, it shows your fear. But if you become calm, if you remain composed, if you speak with intention and act with purpose, then the mirror reflects something far greater. It reflects mastery, and the world, seeing that mastery, cannot help but respond in kind. You must now make the decision. Will you continue to communicate as you have reactively, chaotically, under the rule of impulse and ego? Or will you step into the rare air of deliberate, disciplined, and detached communication? It is a simple choice, but it will demand everything from you. It will demand discipline over comfort. It will demand stillness over reaction. It will demand truth over approval. But if you pay the price, your reward will be influence beyond imagination, respect beyond titles, and success that cannot be shaken. Because once you control the way you communicate, you control the way the world responds to you. And once you master that, you master life. The future belongs to the communicator who masters himself. The man who cannot hold his tongue will never hold a throne. The woman who cannot restrain her emotion will never command true respect. The entrepreneur who cannot govern his tone will never govern his business. The leader who cannot discipline his words will never discipline a team. And the individual who cannot change the way they communicate will never change their life. You must now understand what few ever do. Success is not earned in public. It is cultivated in silence, in struggle, in solitary moments where you choose mastery over mood, clarity over chaos, and response over reaction. It is in those moments when you want to lash out, but you breathe instead, when you want to defend your ego, but you choose silence, when you want to win the argument, but you choose to win the outcome instead. That is when you become invincible. Because power does not lie in domination. Power lies in direction, and the most powerful direction is inward. If you will dominate anything in this world, let it be your inner world. That is where the real war is waged. That is where real freedom is found. And that is where the rare few choose to live. Now let me say it clearly, without metaphor, without flourish. You will not change your life by hoping. You will not command success by dreaming. You will not communicate with mastery by accident. You must decide. You must draw the line between who you've been and who you are now prepared to become. And you must decide this not once, but daily, hourly, moment by moment. You must wake and tell yourself, today I do not react, I choose. Today I do not defend, I direct. Today I do not speak from ego, I speak from vision. Today I do not need approval, I carry alignment. Today I do not perform, I produce results. Today I do not chase noise, I generate truth. This is the mantra of the master. This is the mindset of the elite. And I do not speak of elite by blood, wealth, or privilege. No, I speak of the mental elite, those who have trained their communication until it becomes a sword of influence and a mirror of power. These are the few who can sit at a negotiation table in complete stillness and win. These are the few who can enter a room and change its temperature by presence alone. These are the few who, when they speak, the world listens not because they yell, but because they mean it. This is available to you, not in 10 years, not when your career is ready, not when others finally see your worth. Now, here, in this moment where you are being told what no one else dared to tell you, that your life is being shaped by every word you choose, every tone you adopt, every reaction you allow, you have underestimated the power of your communication, not in how others receive it, but in how it conditions your future. Every time you react emotionally, you tell your subconscious, I am not in control. Every time you speak to be liked, you tell your subconscious, my worth is not mine to decide. Every time you let ego dictate your tone, you tell your subconscious, power is something I must prove. But when you communicate from mastery, when your words are calm, clear, exact, intentional, you teach your mind that you are the source, not the beggar, that you are the authority, not the actor, that you are the builder, not the echo. This is what changes your life. Not strategy alone, not tactics, not information, but alignment. When who you are, what you think, how you feel, and what you say are no longer fragmented, but one. That is the moment your words become laws. That is the moment your voice becomes vision. That is the moment your presence becomes unforgettable. And from that moment forward, you do not live reactively. You live deliberately. You rise each day not to chase but to create. You speak not to fill silence, but to shape reality. You lead not to be seen, but to deliver what is necessary. And all of it began when you changed the way you communicated, not externally, but internally. When you finally said, no more reacting, no more proving, no more pleasing. From this day forward, I lead from clarity, not emotion, from discipline, not mood, from vision, not noise. This is the final key, and I leave you with it not as a suggestion, but as a mandate. Change the way you communicate, and you will change everything. Your relationships will transform not because others changed, but because your tone no longer chases chaos. Your income will rise not because the world became easier, but because your voice became irresistible. Your mind will become clear not because life got quiet, but because you became the calm within the storm. And your life will never again be dictated by impulse, but by intention. This is your power. This is your duty. This is your destiny. And it begins not when others believe in you, but when you learn to speak to yourself with truth, with strength, with unshakable direction. So go now. Speak less. Mean more. React less. Reflect more. Prove less. Build more. And above all, lead, communicate, and command from within. Because that and only that is how you change your life. There is a reason why the majority spend their entire lives in pursuit of riches and yet die in poverty, not always of coin, but of character, of clarity, of inner control. The truth is this: most men chase what they have not yet earned within. They seek fortune while remaining fragmented. They crave success while refusing mastery. They demand wealth, but reject the discipline required to embody it. The man who chases wealth but has not yet become wealth is like a beggar in a king's robe dressed for the throne, but unable to carry its weight. Understand this eternal law. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. This is the secret every fortune leaves unspoken. This is the knowledge that separates those who momentarily touch riches from those who build legacies that defy time. Wealth is not paper. Wealth is not numbers. Wealth is not applause, assets, or attention. Wealth, real wealth, begins in the unseen corridors of the inner world. It begins with self-respect, mental discipline, and emotional sovereignty. It begins when you stop chasing and start becoming. You see, the world rewards the man who holds himself like a treasury, who commands his energy like capital, who does not spend his attention foolishly, and who deposits his habits with intention. If you cannot govern your reactions, you will never govern your results. If you cannot manage your mood, you will mismanage your mission. If your inner world is chaos, your outer world will be confusion. This is not philosophy for the faint of heart. This is a blueprint for the bold, for those who are ready to look in the mirror, not with shame, but with responsibility. For those who are ready to say, I am the cause of my condition, and I am the cure. So let us define the disease clearly, with no soft edges, no sugar coating, no excuses. The enemy of wealth is not poverty. It is emotional reactivity. The man who reacts cannot build. The man who reacts cannot plan. The man who reacts spends his energy defending himself instead of designing his destiny. If you live by impulse, you will be owned by environment. But if you live by principle, you will command your environment. This, my friend, is the foundation of becoming wealth emotional detachment. Let us not misunderstand this word. Detachment does not mean absence of feeling. It means the mastery of feeling. It means to hold emotions like fire, useful when contained, destructive when uncontrolled. It is the difference between a man who rages at traffic and a man who arrives in silence. One forfeits his power, the other preserves it. If you allow emotions to govern your actions, you forfeit your power. But if you command your thoughts, you command your future. Now ask yourself, who is truly wealthy? Is it the man who reacts to every insult, every shift in mood, every opinion from the crowd? Or is it the man who remains unbothered, unmoved, undistracted, focused not on proving, but on building? Wealth belongs to the man whose mind is his own. Your first investment must not be in real estate, stocks, or currency. It must be in self-command, because $1 million opportunity will collapse in the hands of a 10-cent mindset. Therefore, train the mind. Discipline the reactions. Detach from the need to be seen, to be praised, to be agreed with. Silence the ego and amplify the mission. Let us now move deeper to the principle that supports all inner transformation: definiteness of purpose. A man without purpose is a leaf in the wind. He may be educated. He may be skilled. He may be talented. But he will drift. Because direction, not potential, determines destiny. You cannot become wealth if you do not first define what wealth is to you. Not someone else's version. Not the magazine cover's fantasy. But your clear, sharp, deeply personal definition of success. Until your purpose is definite, your power is diluted. And here is the law. Energy flows where clarity leads. If your vision is vague, your results will be scattered. But if your purpose is defined, your power is multiplied. Purpose cuts through distraction like a sword. Purpose silences doubt. Purpose eliminates the unnecessary and magnifies the essential. The man who wakes each day with a mission will outlast the man who wakes each day with motivation. Motivation fades. Purpose endures. And purpose, when fused with emotional detachment and inner discipline, becomes an unstoppable force. But purpose alone is not enough. You must guard it with the next great principle: self-discipline. This is the bank in which wealth is stored. Self-discipline is the proof that you can be trusted not by others but by yourself. If you say you will rise at dawn and you do, you have earned self-trust. If you say you will focus for 3 hours without distraction and you do, you have earned self-respect. If you say you will finish what you start, regardless of how you feel, and you do, then you have built the rarest form of wealth: consistency. Discipline is the compound interest of character. Each choice, each action, each refusal to quit, these are your deposits. And one day, that account will overflow. Not with applause, but with evidence. The kind of evidence that cannot be taken from you. But discipline does not thrive in chaos. It requires another principle, one nearly extinct in this world: accurate thinking. Let us speak plainly. Most people do not think. They remember, they react, they worry, they repeat what they've been told, but they do not think. Accurate thinking is rare because it is difficult. It requires detachment from emotion. It requires separation from the herd. It requires that you look at a thing as it is, not as you wish it to be. And herein lies the power. He who sees clearly acts effectively. If you cannot think independently, you will never act powerfully. You will chase fads. You will mimic mediocrity. You will seek the approval of those who have not built anything themselves. But if you think with accuracy, if you question, analyze, define, then you will not need to ask for answers. They will arise from the clarity of your perception. Wealth is not found by those who ask, "What is everyone else doing?" It is found by those who ask, "What principle is true, regardless of popularity?" So think. Think before you spend. Think before you speak. Think before you react. Think until thought becomes your ally, not your enemy. And once your thinking is clear, your behavior must follow. Do not think accurately and act emotionally. Do not think clearly and live chaotically. Align your behavior with your beliefs, and your results will follow. You have begun the process of becoming, and now we sharpen the edge of your inner blade. For clarity without execution is illusion. Discipline without direction is cruelty. And thought without embodiment is hollow. Let us now move into a principle that few dare to live by, yet it separates the common man from the immortal builder. The law of mental neutrality. This law is neither passive nor permissive. It is the supreme posture of the man who has learned to see reality without distortion, judgment, or obsession. It is the calm within the storm. It is the eye of the hurricane. It is the posture of a general standing before the battlefield, seeing every move without flinching. To master this law, you must sever the invisible cords that tie your peace to conditions. You must become unmoved in order to move mountains. The average man is at the mercy of circumstance. A word can rattle him, a delay can defeat him, a rejection can unravel his mind. He walks the world in a state of emotional exposure, open wounds disguised as opinions, past traumas wearing the mask of self-righteousness. But you must not be average. You must observe, not absorb. You must respond, not react. You must delay judgment and sharpen awareness. This is not coldness, it is precision, because the mind that is neutral sees clearly, and the man who sees clearly is dangerous to all confusion. Practice neutrality in all things, not because you are indecisive, but because you are devoted to accuracy before action. He who can withhold emotion long enough to evaluate truth becomes a weapon of staggering efficiency. He is not seduced by urgency. He is not trapped by dramatics. He is not enslaved to opinions. He waits. He watches. He decides. And when he moves, the world cannot help but follow, not because he is loud, but because he is aligned. Mental neutrality leads to mental leverage, and mental leverage leads to quiet dominance. The man who does not flinch is the man who gets the deal. The man who does not beg is the man who earns respect. The man who does not chase is the man who attracts power. And this, my friend, is how you stop chasing wealth, you become it. You carry yourself as one who already owns the throne. You walk into rooms with calm eyes and clean thoughts. You speak when it is required, and you remain silent when it is wise. Because silence is not weakness. It is strategy. Let us now move toward one of the most misused, misunderstood powers of the mind: autosuggestion. The subconscious mind does not care whether what you feed it is truth or delusion. It accepts all with equal openness, and the man who does not guard his inner dialogue is doomed to build with borrowed beliefs. You must understand, your mind is programmable, and if you are not programming it with intention, it is being programmed by repetition, often from forces that do not have your success in mind. Every word you speak is either a spell of power or a curse of limitation. Every phrase you repeat, "I can't, I'm tired, I'm not good with money, that's just who I am," is a command your subconscious will obey. And make no mistake, the subconscious obeys. So speak only what you wish to live. Never lie to yourself, but feed yourself with the highest version of truth you can believe today. Speak with certainty, even when your circumstances lag behind. Say it in the dark until it becomes reality in the light. Autosuggestion is not wishful thinking. It is intentional reprogramming of your emotional atmosphere. It is the daily act of becoming wealth in mind before wealth ever arrives in form. Every morning, declare, I am calm, I am sovereign, I control what I think, and therefore I control what I build. And every night, confirm, my mind is my asset, my thoughts are my property. I choose what grows here. If you do this long enough and you act in alignment with your declarations, then the outer world will begin to echo your inner convictions. Not because magic has occurred, but because you have finally stopped arguing with your own power. And this internal congruence is what creates an aura of inevitability. When you speak with the voice of one who knows where they are going, the world steps aside. When you act as one who has already received the blueprint, people offer bricks for your foundation. And when you walk in silence, focused and steady, doors that were once locked fall open, not out of coincidence, but out of consequence. This is not luck. It is the result of inner alignment. Now let us speak of something forgotten in the noise of modern ambition, something so simple that most bypass it, the power of calmness. Calmness is not the absence of adversity. It is the mastery of internal condition regardless of external turbulence. It is the discipline of the emotionally mature. It is the fruit of a trained mind. Calmness is the invisible advantage of all great men. It is what allows the investor to wait while others panic. It is what allows the leader to listen while others interrupt. It is what allows the builder to continue while others quit. Calmness is the signature of certainty, and certainty is the secret weapon of success. You do not become calm by accident. You become calm by discipline, by rising when you said you would, by focusing when it is easier to scroll, by enduring boredom when you'd rather be entertained, by refusing to be seduced by urgency, by training your nervous system to obey your mind, not the other way around. Because when your nervous system no longer rules your life, your enemies have nothing left to control. They cannot disturb you. They cannot provoke you. They cannot manipulate you. And that is real freedom. Not money in the bank, but ownership of self. That is wealth that cannot be taxed. That is power that cannot be stolen. That is success that does not shout, it radiates. And now, my friend, you must begin. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. You begin with what you control. And what you control is your inner world. You do not chase wealth. You organize your thoughts. You do not chase respect. You govern your emotions. You do not chase influence. You command your behavior. And when all of these are aligned, wealth will chase you. Because you have become what others want to follow. Because you have become what the world quietly honors. Because you have become wealth itself. Now we speak of the final and supreme integration, when all the principles, definiteness of purpose, self-discipline, autosuggestion, accurate thinking, and emotional detachment converge into what I call the mindset of inheritance. What is the mindset of inheritance? It is the state in which you no longer pursue the rewards of wealth with desperation. You possess the inner traits that would make you a worthy steward of it. You no longer question if success is possible. You live as though it were already yours, not arrogantly, but lawfully. You have paid the internal price, and therefore the external reward becomes a matter of timing, not begging. Understand this. What you have not yet received in the physical, you must carry in your posture. That is what inheritance demands: posture. Posture is not bravado, it is alignment. Posture says, I will walk with dignity even when overlooked. Posture says, I will execute my vision with detail even when unnoticed. Posture says, I do not borrow confidence from results. I borrow it from principle. This is how the wealthy think before the world calls them wealthy. This is how empires are seated in silence. This is why so many chase wealth and never find it. They believe it is something to be found rather than something to be embodied. If your thoughts are poor, your fortune will be short-lived. If your behavior is erratic, your blessings will come as punishment, not reward. But if your spirit is steady, if your habits are sharp, if your standards are immovable, wealth will feel at home in your presence. Let us now address the root of all repeated failure, the inability to detach from outcomes. This is where most fall. They take action, then panic. They execute, then obsess. They release effort, then try to control timing. But hear this and let it burn away every trace of emotional weakness. You are not owed instant reward for disciplined action. You are owed the inner transformation that comes from becoming the type of person who can act without needing reward. Detach from result. Attach to process. Fall in love with the discipline, not the dopamine. Build for the principle, not the praise. Move for the mission, not the moment. And when you master this mindset, success will no longer be a goal. It will be a byproduct. Now let me introduce a final sacred law, a truth so elemental, so rarely understood, that it is often mocked by the undisciplined. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself in private. If you delay your own growth, the world delays your reward. If you betray your own promises, the world distrusts your potential. If you abandon your own standards, the world reflects that chaos right back at you. But if you command your time as if it were treasure, if you govern your thoughts as if they were soldiers, if you honor your word in silence, long before anyone is watching, then you teach the world to take you seriously. You become undeniable not because of your noise, but because of your presence. And you do not gain that presence by chasing it. You gain it by earning it in stillness. That's why I've told you from the start, stop chasing wealth, start becoming it. Because wealth is not a finish line. It is a state of alignment. It is the natural result of inner order. It is the fruit of a rooted soul. And that soul must be trained, shaped, disciplined like a temple. You cannot walk into wealth with a scattered mind, an undisciplined mouth, a reactive temperament, and a flimsy standard. You must walk in with the poise of royalty, not because the world calls you that, but because you call yourself that in action. Let us end not with applause, but with a personal covenant, a quiet agreement between your higher self and the version of you that's been waiting too long to rise. Say it now, not out loud, but from the place inside you where oaths are kept. I will no longer chase what I have not prepared to carry. I will no longer beg for results I have not earned in discipline. I will no longer build castles on unstable thoughts, emotions, or standards. I will become wealth in thought, in action, in presence, even if no one sees me do it. Because this world may delay recognition, but it cannot delay reflection. And the world reflects not what you hope, but what you are. So rise, not with noise, not with need, but with knowing. Rise with silence behind your eyes and fire in your bones. Rise with stillness in your heart and clarity in your steps. Rise with the dignity of a man who does not explain. Rise with the energy of one who does not chase because he has become. And remember, the moment you stop seeking wealth as something out there and start living as if it were in here, you will cross a line that most never dare approach. That line is not fame. It is not fortune. It is freedom. And that freedom is not free. It is earned in the quiet, in the consistency, in the mastery of your inner world. The world belongs not to those who cry out for it, but to those who go quiet and let the silence do the work.